Well, good evening, church. Hope you're having a wonderful week, man. It has been hot outside. Hopefully you're staying cool enough this week, drinking plenty of liquids. And I just want to thank you for spending some time with me this evening as we continue to go over the 10 Pillars of Biblical Leadership here by Paul Nichols. I really enjoyed this book, and we're going to continue going through. We only got a few chapters left, and so I wanted to share a little story with you about, and this is just a lesson you can apply to your life. I was cooking some breakfast for my wife. My wife's birthday was this week, and we've been having a lot of fun by cooking her some breakfast. I was making some eggs, and I learned this lesson. All I did is I opened up, we have these hot pepper flakes, and I just took the container and I opened it up like this, and I put a little bit of those red hot pepper flakes in there, closed the lid, put it away, and then I made this ultimate mistake. I rubbed my eye with just the tip of my finger, and it felt like it was burning. So the moral of the story is, if you touch something hot, don't touch your eyeball. It does hurt. I had to flush it out. It took a while. It eventually quit hurting, and I can see fine. But I think about that and the little mistakes of how many times do we touch our face without knowing. And I'm sure if you watch this video, I'm going to touch my face multiple times. And as I'm speaking, already I can tell that my nose is starting to itch. So there's one, and I'm sure that it's one of many. I only have really one announcement for you guys this week, and that is the Kids Drive-In movie. And that's Friday, and so if you got kids or grandkids, they're going to come on down here at 5 o'clock. They're going to have some dinner. We're doing hot dogs, and the popcorn machine's going to be going. There's going to be an ice cream truck here, and they're going to build their own cardboard cars to watch the movie on, and we'll start a movie and it'll be done about 8:30 or so, 8 or 8:30. So if your kids are well, please, if they are sick, I'm sorry, but we need you to stay home. If they're well, though, come on down. If you are sick, please stay home. But if you're well, come on down. So we're doing that this Friday, and we just want to invite you to that. Let's get started. What are we on? Chapter 8. Okay, Chapter 8. Don't be limited by your boundaries. David. So we're going to be looking at the life of David, and this is more young David when he faces Goliath. And hopefully, you kind of remember that story a little bit. But I want to show you an exercise they put in this book here, and I failed miserably at it. But if you take a piece of paper and maybe grab some at home, and maybe you've seen this exercise, but take and put 9 dots on it like this. Okay, 9 dots on it like this. Now the goal is to connect all of the dots, just make sure it looks all right, connect all of the dots with 4 lines without picking up your pencil. So, instantly I thought of around the corner like that, but it doesn't connect all the dots. And so, you can think of however you want, but the goal is to connect all of the dots. And I know I showed you this at the first, and they put it in the book at the first, and all I could do was think about what was the answer, because that's where my brain was going. And of course, in the book, they say the answer is at the end of the chapter. And I will show you the answer at the end of the chapter. But I want you just to think about that for a second, and maybe pause the video if you want to mess around with that. And then come back, and we're going to keep going through this. But keep that in your mind, because what we're thinking about is, how do we think outside of the boundaries? It's so easy to get caught up, especially in leadership. We just get focused on what's working. That's hard to keep casting vision and keep moving forward on something that we don't know yet. And so here we go. This exercise really just teaches us how limited our thinking is. Now the answer, he tells us in here, is thinking outside of the boundaries, thinking outside of the box. And this is something that we have to learn as we continue in leadership, thinking outside of the box. I love he uses a statistic here, and he says that 96% of all top producers, as we put, or managers here, of leaders think that they're in the top 5%. So if we were to go and poll everybody and say, do you think you're in the top 5% of leaders? And the overwhelming majority says, yes, we do. Now, what does that show us? It shows us that really 5% of those probably are the top 5%, and the other 91% of all those people polled are delusional. They're not being honest with themselves. They're missing the point. They've come to a place where they believe what they're doing is enough to make them great. They think they're greater than they actually are. I love that he puts here, it says, are people really able to see all the possibilities, or are they limited? So we're going to talk a little bit about David versus Goliath. David, he was a leader who wasn't limited by boundaries. Now, if you remember the story of David and Goliath, and the Sunday school version, Goliath is this 10-foot giant, and the Philistines are meeting up against the Israelites, and they're saying, hey, send out your best warrior, and instead of just everybody having this bloodshed, we'll just send our 2 best warriors out to fight each other and let them duke it out. And whoever wins, wins. And of course the Philistines said, well, we got Goliath. He's this big giant of a man. He's fought in many battles. He's got all this armor, this giant sword. And who do you guys want to send out to fight him? And well, the Israelites, no one wanted to go out, obviously, because he was gigantic. And so the problem is they got caught thinking we need to fight Goliath the way that Goliath wants to fight. To fight him in a traditional way. Unfortunately, they didn't have anybody in their camp that would win like that. They were incapable of envisioning a different strategy. I love what they talk about with David here. He says he injected fresh thinking into the army and accomplished the mission using untraditional personnel, equipment, and strategy. So those are the 3 things we're going to look at tonight: personnel, equipment, and strategy. So first thing we want to talk about is personnel limits. David wasn't the same size. It wasn't a fair fight. They were on unequal levels physically. David was able to think beyond the normal personal limitations because he understood that he had the necessary transferable skills to get the jobs done. Now, other people, they saw him, well, David, how could you fight Goliath? All you are is this little shepherd boy. All you do is just watch over the sheep. That's what you do. You're young. You're not as old. Your older brothers, we should send them. They're bigger and stronger. They have more experience. They've been fighting in the army. But David, he saw himself as someone, he goes, you know what? When the lions came, I killed the lion. And when the bears came, I killed the bears. And I protected the sheep. Saul and the other soldiers, they were limited in their thinking because they believed it would be impossible to do a task tomorrow if you had not done it yesterday. I want you to catch this saying because it really sticks out. It would be impossible to do a task tomorrow if you had not done it yesterday. They had forgotten the fact that before they were soldiers, they had also not yet been battle tested. And I've seen this happen over and over in different areas and different businesses and even in churches. And, for our church here, we've gone through, I worked for 4 different pastors, and I learned a ton from all of them. But every time the pastoral selection process came up, we always looked for someone who had years of pastoral experience but was younger. And the reality is that person didn't exist. That person didn't exist. And so we have to remember that what is God saying? We need to think outside of the box. So as a leader, when looking at other people, see them for the skills they bring to the team rather than for the positions they've held in the past. It is possible as a leader to hire the wrong person based on just because they've been in a position. Remember, when we're building a team, we're talking about building a team. We're talking about surrounding ourselves with the right characters in our jobs and in our business and whatever we're doing. And it's more than just picking someone who may on paper seem qualified. Make sure the skill set matches. Find the person that's driven. Find the person that's going to be going. Find the person that fits what you need. Think outside the box. Here we go. Equipment limits. Number 2 here. David was able to convince Saul that he had the transferable skills to do the job. Okay, listen, I know how to fight bears and lions. I can kill this Goliath. And so he went forward, and they decided they would prepare David the way that any other soldier would go forward. Okay, well, Goliath is big and strong. He's got his helmet, his sword. He's got his armor all on. Well, let's see. We need to get David set up the same exact way. So we're going to take David, and we're going to give him a sword, and we're going to give him armor, and we're going to tell him to go out there and try to fight him the way that you're supposed to fight. You see, David was not the typical soldier and needed to be equipped for battle in a different manner as well. Don't be limited to what we just think this is what has to work. It has to go this way. You have to do it this way. Different people have different skill sets, and so many times we just get into this routine, and sometimes for good reasons because it's worked, but we have to understand people are different. We want to get the most out of each person. Not limited by his boundaries, David decided to fight without armor. Now think about what this might look like as everybody's getting ready to send David out to battle for their country or for their group, their nation. And David says, well, I can't wear armor. That's not how I'm used to fighting. And everybody's like, whoa, we should not send, this is a terrible idea. And David goes, and not only did he not wear armor, what does he uses a slingshot, and he picks up stones, and then he approached the armed giant with nothing but a sling and a staff. I mean, think, it's quite an amazing story when you think about it. But what we love and what we learn about David here is he just didn't get caught up, well, this is how we're supposed to do it, so this is how we're going to keep doing it. And as a leader, whether it's business, home, church, any of these things, we need to make sure we're thinking outside of the box. Don't get caught up in traditional things. It seems to me that some of the problems have been made worse because of people who are unable to see all of the possibilities. You get caught up in just, it's working fine, let's stay here. And as a leader, we have to keep thinking ahead. We have to think outside of the box. As we hopefully work our way to a solution, let us not be limited in our understanding of the problem. The problem is not limited, so that here we're talking about different businesses and different companies, and the problem is not really one side or the other, and he writes down Democrats or Republicans. It's not limited to either Main Street or Wall Street. There's not a silver bullet which will magically solve the problem. The solution, whatever problem you're facing, the solution involves us to think differently about business and political ethics, long-term planning, corporate sustainability, and leadership. One of the weaknesses I've seen in the church, not just our church, in the church overall, is church had a model set up that was started 50 years ago, 60 years ago, but over the course of time, technology's changed, society's changed, the way we interact with each other changed. Here I'm talking to a camera, going to a color television or TV or maybe a cell phone that you keep in your pocket that can reach across the entire world. Now, if you would have told your grandparents this 100 years ago or even 50 years ago, they would have laughed at you. They would have said it's not possible. So society's changed, culture's changed, the tools we have all changed, but the church is a prime example of something that's struggling to change. And so we never compromise the message, but sometimes we have to rethink the methods. Strategy limits. And this is what we're rethinking. And this is a quote from Thomas Edison. I love that he put it in here. It says, "There ain't no rules around here. We're just trying to accomplish something." Now think about that. When you get together a team or a leadership team or a dream team or someone that's thinking about how are we going to go forward and accomplish the mission? How are we going to accomplish this? If we start off with all these set of guidelines, it's going to be tough to actually get any creativity out of them. And so we want them to think. We want them everything's off limits. There are no rules around here. We want to accomplish something. David would not allow himself to be bound by traditional strategy. He knew that Goliath was bigger, stronger, and more accomplished with the sword. Fighting Goliath this way would be a losing battle. I love that in here he puts, perhaps there were great slingshot wielders before him who didn't think of this and fought losing battles with swords. Now think about this. Here's David. His skill set. He stayed in his skill set and he used it to his advantage. And as a leader, I think that's important. He didn't just go with what the traditional battle would have been. He said, listen, here is where I'm strongest at, and I'm going to use this skill, this strategy, and I know it can work. And it did. He ends up killing Goliath. But think, how many people said, here's my skill set, but, everybody says I need to go this direction. This is the path I have to take. This is where I need to go. And they picked up that sword, and they put on that armor, and they lost. because that's not what they were comfortable. That's not how they were designed. That's not how they were wired. But they got sucked into this trap that this is how it had to be. Thinking outside of the box. Don't be limited by your boundaries. Great leaders are the ones who are not afraid to try a new strategy. The others just seem to have enjoyed living in mediocrity. If it is true that good is the enemy of great, then what is it that limits good leaders from becoming great? Which one would you rather be? When you think about it, sometimes good or good enough keeps us from becoming great. Sometimes we think things are going good and we never try anything new anymore. We just get limited to that box. And what I've seen in churches, but in businesses as well, is if they don't change, they slowly and slowly start to die and shrink until they close. And so don't be afraid to think outside the box. Here we go. Now this is how we're going to finish it. When to comply. Because you say, hey, Jose, that's all great. Okay, we're going to think outside the box, but how far are we allowed to think outside the box? Before you head back into the world, ready to unleash your unlimited abilities, keep in mind that David did fight the battle. There still was a battle that had to go on. He didn't talk his way out of it. David didn't just say, well, hey, here's what we're going to do. I have a new plan. He said he knew what the objective was. It was still to fight Goliath. He just thought of a different way of doing it. He didn't abandon the battle. He didn't leave the battle. He still fought the battle. He just thought outside the traditional boundaries of how the battle was going to be fought. But he still fought the battle. Even in a story where David thought outside the box in many ways, he complied with the world in many more. He still respected the rules of battle by fighting one-on-one. He still respected the king after the battle. We still have, no matter where you work or where you're at or what church you're in or what business you're in, you probably have rules and regulations that you can't go beyond. You know, it's interesting. Here we are in the middle of COVID and a pandemic, and the rules change all the time. And as a church, we've had to really think outside the box. And we have a great team here, and we begin to think, how do we continue to be the church? How do we continue to minister to people? How do we continue to reach them? And I keep pushing people here. We can't just stop and say, hey, drive-in church was great. Or, online church is great. Or Sunday mornings right now, we brought people back. These are going great. My mind's constantly thinking of how do we reach more. We haven't fulfilled our complete mission as the church. We still have to go out and spread the gospel. We still have to fellowship with one another. We still have to hold each other accountable. And how do we do that? And so we're going to try it through small groups. And whether it's through phone calls and calling and talking people and saying, hey, we missed you. Or whether it's visiting people from a distance. I'm not sure all the right answers, but we're not just going to be satisfied with just sitting in our office and just waiting this thing out. So we're going to keep asking God, how do you want us to get through all this? I love how he ends this, and it explains as good as any. He says, if it seems like I'm talking out of two sides of my mouth, that's because I am. I can't tell you a simple rule to know when to comply and when to try something new. Just like the regulations we have here, some things, it's hard. It's hard to navigate through all that. But here's what you need to do. You need to balance your responsibility, what you're called to do, to your organization or family or church or wherever you're at, and your desire to achieve great things. So you have to have this balance between, okay, here's my mission, my objective that I'm trying to reach, and here's my desire to get there. I mean, I want to get there. I don't want to just be satisfied here. I want to accomplish the mission. And if this isn't working, I just need to rethink my thinking. Trust your instincts, do what's best. And I love what he says here. He says, go for it wholeheartedly, whatever you decide. Wholeheartedly, whatever you decide. All right, I'm going to show you how to solve this thing because I didn't figure it out because, I don't know. I was too busy wanting to read and get through. And he told me the answer was at the end. That messed me up. It's very simple, actually. And so if you start right here, and we're talking about 4 lines that are all connected. Take this first line and we go right up here like this. Now that's simple enough. Second line, we're going to come all the way down from here Now here's what we would think we should stop. And this is where all of us get caught at. And we all get stuck at. Hopefully you guys can kind of see that. I don't know. But if you want to go all the way down here, we're going to go outside the line. And then we're going to come all the way across over here. And then we're going to go right back across the top like that. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines outside the box. This is what caught me here and here, because I wanted to stay inside the boundaries here. And you know what? Church or family or whoever's watching this, don't get caught inside the box. Think outside the box. Be creative. Find ways. Don't give up on what the end goal is, what the mission is. Find creative ways to get there. Let me pray with you and encourage you. Father, we just thank you for each and every one. Thank you for spending time with me tonight. And I just pray that you just bless them, Father. I pray that you give us creative new ways to accomplish the mission. Lord, to think outside the box. And I know we live in a world right now that the rules are constantly changing, and we're not sure what's coming up ahead or what's going to happen next. And I just pray that you just bring peace of mind to us, but also give us just this amazing creativeness just to come out and reach our mission, Father. We thank you for what you're doing, for what you're going to do. Now be with us. Keep us safe the rest of this week. Give us an opportunity to show your love. We ask all this in Jesus' name. And everyone said, amen. God bless. Have a great rest of the week, and we hope to see you on Sunday or on Sunday online. Bye.